Hello, I'm the EDC academic. Thank you for watching. In this video, I'm going to be talking about what I believe to be one of Victorinox's most underrated four-layer knives. This is the Fisherman. It is unfortunately discontinued, but at the time of recording, it is still available on Amazon for about 57, 58 bucks. And the one that you can get new doesn't have the metal inlay. The one that you get new is heat stamped. So I would recommend finding one of these on the secondary market. They are readily available between the $25 and $35 range. And I think it's an excellent knife, and I'm going to talk about why I think it's an excellent knife. So I'm going to walk through some of the features here. The features that it has in common with nearly every other of Victorinox's four-layer knives. The first, we have the opening layer, you have the cap lifter, and you have the bottle opener. Close that up. Another layer is the scissors layer. There you have the scissors. Another layer is going to be the, well, that's not one that has in common with the other ones. That's one that makes it different. I'll open that back up in a second. There's the small blade. And of course, here we have the large blade. The bonus layer here, that layer number 4, is the scaler, descaler, and the hook disgorger. And of course, it has the measurements on the back. More of a depth gauge than a ruler, but in some applications, it might work as being a ruler. And of course, it has the back tools here of the backside Phillips, and it has the awl / reamer, and it has the, if I can get it out without ripping my thumbnail, it has the parcel hook. So that is the Fisherman, and I'm just going to bring some other popular four-layer models into a screen here just to give a basis of comparison. There we have the Victorinox Explorer, here we have the Deluxe Tinker, and here we have the Huntsman. Now, I'm going to just pull out the scale, the tools that differ. So you have, for the Fisherman, of course, you have the scaler. On the Deluxe Tinker, which is the same as the Deluxe Climber, except for the Deluxe Climber is going to have the corkscrew in the back instead of the Phillips. This is the Explorer, and it has the inline screwdriver and has the magnifying glass, and this is the Huntsman, and it has the wood saw. And the Huntsman is the same as the Fieldmaster, except for the Fieldmaster has the Phillips, and the Huntsman is also the same as the Mountaineer, except for the Mountaineer has the metal file instead of the wood saw. But all of these are very popular choices for four-layer Victorinox products. Now, for me personally, 4 layers getting a little bit on the thick side, so for EDC. And I'm not going to try to convince anybody to carry a 4-layer of Victorinox as an EDC. But if you're already, carrying, if you already have and like a 4-layer Victorinox as an EDC, I'm going to make a case for the fish scaler, especially in an urban setting. In an urban setting, you're not going to need a saw. So I'm just going to put the Huntsman / Fieldmaster away. The Deluxe Tinker is popular. It's one of my favorite EDC models, but it is, even though it's 4 layers, it's thicker because of that plier layer. I don't know how well that's going to come through. I'll catch a shot of that in B-roll. And it's also about a little bit more than a ½ ounce heavier than your other 4-layer models. Virtually, these models here that are on screen are virtually identical, about 3.6, 3.66 ounces. So whether you get the Huntsman / Fieldmaster, whether you get the Fisherman, or whether you get the Explorer, the exact same. Now you're going to be jumping up a little bit more than a ½ ounce in weight with the Deluxe Tinker / Deluxe Climber, depending on whether you have the Phillips or the screwdriver. And of course, it's a little bit wider. And so technically speaking, it's a 4-layer knife, but it's thicker than the other 4-layer knives. And I love the Victorinox pliers, but in an EDC scenario, I don't find myself using them. So that brings it down to these two. A lot of people love the Victorinox Explorer as an urban EDC. It's got the magnifying glass, it's got the inline Phillips. People love the inline Phillips. I love the inline Phillips also. But I don't want to completely discount the importance of the fish scaler, especially coming up on the time of year that we are entering in. This is, it's early November as I'm recording this. And in office settings in November, December, there are a lot of parties. There are a lot of food trays. And even outside of the office setting, you're going to people's houses and there are parties and there are food trays. And this fish scaler, I have never used it to scale fish, but I have used it. I pulled it out and used it as a toothpick / tiny fork. Oftentimes, whenever you're at the office setting, there are just not enough little toothpicks or little plastic forks, and there's still some food left on the tray. And this little guy here is so easy just to pull out and stab and use it use it to serve food, to use it to eat food, especially the popular charcuterie boards now. And also because it is this non-threatening sort of edged implement here, you can use it for some other rudimentary cutting devices without sort of, freaking out people by pulling out a blade. Now, of course, I don't think people should freak out whenever you pull a blade, but if you're walking around a party with a knife in your hand, poking fruit at it and eating it, that could be perceived as odd by some people. But if you're walking around with this in your hand, poking at food and eating it, no one's going to give that a second look. Or if they do give it a second look, it's just going to be curiosity and a point of conversation. So that's my case for the Fisherman. And of course, aesthetically, it's got that beautiful inlay. I'll get a shot of that in B-roll. I don't have one of the newer ones with the ugly heat stamp and paint in there. I have the older style that has the inlay in it. This particular model dates between 92 and 05, and you can tell that by a number of means. Wipe off that blade here. The most notable is the tang stamp, and I don't know how well that's going to come up at all in the video, but I'll get a B-roll shot of that. That is the 4-layer tank stamp with the V in Victorinox slightly larger than the rest of the letters. Now, I'm going to be talking about how this knife compares to that knife. Now, of course, they look identical. They're the same model. This is the Victorinox Fisherman, and this is the Victorinox Fisherman. But as I already said, this is the Victorinox Fisherman that dates between 92 and 05. This Victorinox Fisherman dates between 76 and 83. So I'm going to walk through some points here of difference and how we can date it. One of the things that you'll notice on the back side here, well, on the end rather, is the placement of the key ring. In 1991, Victorinox moved from using this sort of liner extension, and again, it's probably not showing up very well on camera. I'll get a shot of that in B-roll. Prior to 91, Victorinox was using this system where they had either the liner or a little liner spacer, which was acting as the key ring. But of course, that was made out of aluminum, and you had this stainless steel split ring attached to it, and in some occasions that would just wear through and eat away at the key ring. And so in 91, Victorinox changed the key ring from being liner based to being based on the back spring, and you can see how much thicker it is there. So that in and of itself tells us that this knife is prior to 1991. And there are a lot of other markers about this knife that indicate the same thing. I've already talked about the tang stamp. Let me bring the scissors up here. I can do this without cutting myself. The scissors, you'll see that the scissors have a screw on the pivot. In the newer one, again, I say newer, but this is still over 20 years old, the newer model of the scissors is rivet based. And also notice that the newer model of the scissor has that little groove in the back of the moving arm of the scissors, and it has that little bump dimple in the spring, which fits inside of that, and that helps to prevent the spring from splaying out on either side to keep it in line with the handle of the scissors. The older style scissors don't have that. You'll see it's perfectly flat right there, and it doesn't have that little bump on the spring. Those were all changes that Victorinox also introduced in 1991. And let's see now. So I talked about the keyring, I've talked about the scissors. What else can I talk about? Oh yeah, this is the big one. Here we have, on this one, you have the square Phillips, and I just love the square backside Phillips. Look at that. The original design intent behind the square Phillips, whenever it was introduced in the 1950s, I think, it was designed to reduce the accumulation of dirt and lint in the knife. And you can see how it's obvious that it would do that. Your current version, the round Phillips, it blends in nicely with the contours of the knife, but it's got that big old gap back there. And obviously that's a place for dirt and grime to collect. Whereas if it's fitting flush to the scale and the liner, then it gives dirt and grime much less room to fit in there. And another difference is when you're looking directly on top of it, if you're looking down, and again, I don't know how well this is going to come in through the video. I'll get a B-roll shot. The square one here, where is it? There it is. The square one has a slot cut in it. And the reason why the square one has a slot cut in it is because this was designed to be used as a opener for the cans that had the old style key. Old style cans would sometimes come with the little key that you put in the side of it and twisted it around the can itself. But because that little key was just sort of soldered onto the side of the can, oftentimes in transportation and shipping, it would get knocked off, and then you would have this can of goods that you weren't able to open because the key had been knocked off. So Victorinox started adding this little slot to their screwdrivers, and this dates the screwdriver between 1973 and 1983. But in conjunction with the tang stamp, the tang stamp is between 76 and 86. So I know that this particular knife here is between 76 and 83 because of all of those things that we've mentioned. It's got the metal inlay, it has the four-line stamp on the main blade that has the V in Victorinox the same size as all of the others. It has that screw in the pivot of the scissors rather than a rivet. It does not have the groove. It doesn't have the bump on the finger spring. And most telling, it has that, what I think is just a beautiful piece of kit there, that squared off Phillips that has the little slot cut in it to act as a key for cans. And of course, it has that different key ring placement. So those are some differences that exist between this knife, dated between 1992 and 2005, and this one, the slightly older brother, which dates between 1976 and 1983. And as I said earlier, you can buy these models similar to these on the secondary market all day long for the $25 to the $35 range, depending on condition. You know, if they're in really good condition, you know, they can fetch, you know, in the $50 to $60, you know, maybe even $70 range. But the majority of the ones that I see sold on eBay go between, you know, the $25 and $35 range. And I think at that price, they're just a steal, and it's a nice entry point to collecting. These knives that have the inlays, you know, the knives that have these subtle little differences in the keychain, the subtle little difference in the Phillips. Oh, I also didn't mention that this cap lifter here does not have a half stop. You'll see that the cap lifter on the 92 to 05 model has that half stop. The one dated from 76 to 83 is just a cam that lacks that stop. It only has that stop at the 180-degree mark. So that's another one of the differences between them. And like I said, it's just fun to have the collection of the knives that have those subtle little differences between them. The metal inlay, it's just so gorgeous, so good looking. And it's just a fun knife to have. And like I said, especially for this time of year, whenever you're going to be out and about, attending a party, and just pull this out, start stabbing food with it and eating it, it's going to draw some attention. And of course, you might want to fly out under the radar, and might not want to talk about the knife. But in my experience, most people that are into knives like talking about their knives. And so if you can pull this out at a party, use it as a toothpick or a little fork, it's going to give you the opportunity to talk about what is just a neat little bit of kit. So with all those things being said, I think I'm going to go ahead and bring this video to a close. I'm going to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again in a future video.